You won't believe the wild, wacky, and downright horrid fashion trends that took over the 70s. Some of these styles were so outrageous that it's a wonder they ever caught on in the first place. From vinyl jumpsuits to bell-bottoms so wide they could sweep the floor, we're diving deep into the trends we hope to never see again. So before we jump into this fashion time machine, make sure to hit that subscribe button and get ready as we reveal 10 horrid 1970s fashion trends that should never come back. You might just be glad these looks stayed in the past. Number 1. Vinyl jumpsuits. Sure, they were meant to look futuristic, and maybe they even did, for about 5 minutes. But anyone who wore one probably realized pretty quickly that these things were basically wearable saunas. Imagine encasing your entire body in shiny, unbreathable plastic. Sweaty, uncomfortable, and downright impractical, vinyl jumpsuits made dancing at the disco feel like a full-blown workout. And don't even get us started on trying to go to the bathroom. Just forget about it. The shiny, stiff material might have turned heads, but for all the wrong reasons. It's one thing to look good on the dance floor, but it's another to feel like you're slowly roasting inside a plastic bag. This trend was a hot mess, literally, and we're more than happy to leave it in the past. Number 2. Bell-bottoms. Bell-bottoms. They stayed popular from the 60s through the 70s, and even tried to make a comeback in the 90s. But let's face it, bell-bottoms are one of the most controversial fashion trends ever. A little flare at the bottom of your pants isn't a bad thing, but the 70s really took it to the extreme. These pants flared so much that you could practically hide a small child in them. And while they might have been the epitome of cool back in the day, they were also incredibly impractical. Walking down the street with those wide-legged flares meant you were constantly picking up dirt and debris. Plus, if you ever tried to run in them, you probably ended up tripping over your own pants. They looked pretty wild, and while some people tried to bring them back in recent years, they just didn't stick. Maybe because people finally realized how impractical it is to have all that fabric dragging on the ground collecting dust and dirt. Number 3. Wide collar shirts. A great suit can flatter any physique, but the super large collars that men rocked in the 70s? Not so much. These wide collar shirts look more like something out of a costume party than a chic everyday look. The collars were so big they could practically take flight. And let's be honest, the main reason they were so popular was that they provided the perfect frame for chest hair. Lots and lots of chest hair. While a little chest hair might add to that rugged, masculine appeal, the wide collar shirts of the 70s took things to a whole new level. The idea was to show off as much chest hair as possible, and for a while, it was considered the height of cool. We'll always have a soft spot for Tom Selleck's iconic look, but for everyday wear, this was just a bit too much fluff. Today, we might appreciate a more subtle approach, but back then, it was all about being as bold and brash as possible. Number 4. Double denim. Denim is a timeless fashion staple, but the 1970s took it to a whole new level, one that we'd rather forget. Double denim, aka the Canadian tuxedo, became a thing. Now, a great pair of jeans? Absolutely. A denim jacket? Sure, why not? But wearing them together? That's where we draw the line. And when you pair double denim with a satin shirt and a forest of chest hair, well, it just wasn't a good look. The idea of matching your jeans with a denim jacket might have seemed cool in theory, but in practice, it was just too much of a good thing. Instead of looking effortlessly stylish, you ended up looking like a tryhard. Let's keep this trend buried in the past where it belongs. Number 5. Ultra wide-legged pants. If you thought bell-bottoms were bad, let us introduce you to their big sister, ultra wide-legged pants. These pants took the flare trend and cranked it up to 11. Sure, they looked dramatic, but they were so impractical. All that fabric was constantly scraping the ground, getting dirty, and tripping you up. It was like trying to walk around with a tent attached to your legs. Ultra wide-leg pants may have made a statement, but it wasn't one we need to repeat. The 70s were all about excess, and these pants embodied that to the fullest. They were more about making a statement than being practical or comfortable. And let's not forget the sound they made when you walked, like a constant swishing that announced your arrival long before you entered the room. Number 6. Turtleneck and blazer combo. Now, here's a mashup that just didn't work. The turtleneck and blazer combo. On their own, turtlenecks and blazers can be great. A turtleneck can keep you warm, and a blazer is always stylish. But put them together and you've got a fashion disaster on your hands. Even the coolest of the cool, like Steve McQueen, couldn't pull off this look without looking like they were trying too hard. And remember Jack Nicholson in The Shining? That turtleneck and blazer combo didn't just make him look bad, it drove him insane. The combination of a thick, tight turtleneck and a structured blazer just didn't work. It was like trying to mix ketchup and cereal, just a total mismatch that shouldn't happen. Number 7. Shiny shirts. We love John Travolta, no doubt, but those shiny shirts he made famous in Saturday Night Fever? Yeah, they're not exactly versatile. Shiny shirts had their moment in the spotlight, literally, but outside of the disco, they just don't work. There are very few occasions when a shiny shirt is a good idea. Unless you're figure skating in the Olympics, it's probably best to steer clear of these blindingly bright garments. They were flashy, they were eye-catching, but they were also incredibly uncomfortable. The fabric didn't breathe, which meant you were sweating like crazy under those disco lights. And let's not forget how easy it was to stain or snag them. Once you got a mark on one of these shirts, it was game over. They were high maintenance, high risk, and low reward. Definitely not a trend we need to revisit. Number 8. Cutout swimsuits. The 1970s beach scene was all about tanning. Way too much tanning, actually. But another questionable trend that came along with it was cutout swimsuits. These swimsuits were designed to leave as little to the imagination as possible, but they also left some seriously strange tan lines. They were meant to be sexy, but more often than not, they just looked awkward. The strategic cutouts created bizarre shapes that didn't exactly complement the body's natural curves. And considering the health risks of all that tanning, it's probably best that we let this trend sink into the ocean of forgotten fashion. Besides, who wants to spend hours in the sun only to end up with weird, uneven tan lines? Number 9. Terry cloth clothes. Terry cloth makes a great towel, but as clothing, not so much. Imagine taking the fabric you use to dry off after a shower and turning it into a full outfit. That's exactly what happened in the 70s with terry cloth jumpsuits. They were absorbent, sure, but they also made you look like you were ready to clean up a spill at any moment. The idea behind terry cloth clothing was comfort. After all, who doesn't love the feeling of wrapping up in a soft, fluffy towel? But in practice, it was a disaster. The fabric clung to the body in all the wrong places, emphasizing every lump and bump. And let's not forget how unflattering these outfits were. Picture a slightly sweaty, slightly overweight, very hairy middle-aged man in a head-to-toe terry cloth suit. Not exactly the height of fashion. Thankfully, this trend didn't last long. It turns out that what works for drying dishes doesn't necessarily work for dressing yourself. Number 10. Studded belts. Studded belts burst onto the scene during the 70s as a symbol of rebellion, especially in the punk rock world. They were meant to show that you didn't have to conform to the norms. And while they might have been edgy at the time, the reality is that studded belts are just plain uncomfortable. They catch on everything, and they're not exactly practical. The idea behind studded belts was to add a bit of edge and attitude to your outfit. They were meant to look tough and rebellious, but they also come with a lot of downsides. For one, they were heavy. The metal studs added a lot of weight, making the belt sag and shift throughout the day. And if you accidentally brushed up against something or someone, you were liable to leave a mark. These belts had a bit of a comeback in the early 2000s, thanks to stores like Hot Topic, but they quickly fell out of favor again. Maybe because people realized that poking yourself every time you put your arms at your sides isn't worth the so-called edge. And there you have it, guys. 10 horrid 1970s fashion trends that should never, ever make a comeback. What do you think? Did we miss any other terrible trends from the 70s? Or are you secretly hoping one of these makes a comeback? Let us know in the comments below.